Morning, can you all hear me? Henry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. We will get started in the next 5 minutes. As usual, you need to go to the bathroom, get some drinks, something to eat. Hope everyone is doing good. Hope you guys had a good week. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are.
What?
Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's had a good weekend. Ismail, Kate, I'm assuming it's Kate with a C, C-A-T, George, Ice Cube, Jess, Joe, Louis or Luis, don't know which way you pronounce it, Pablo, Dad, what's going on, Sebastian, I mispronounce this name every time. Yeah, it's so hard for me. I'll get it one of these days. Sufani? Sufane? Good morning.
You can say just Suf. Suf is good.
Suf? Alright, sounds good.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Oh,
Glad to have you.
yeah.
Leslie, good morning. Hope everyone's doing good. We'll get started in just a minute. I don't know how to get this in. Alrighty, we can go ahead and get into it. We're going into the last week of June. I expect a lot of volatility this week. We did not have too much volatility going into this past week. It's more of a smaller range than usual. That's okay. More of a retracement on the theme, I believe. So yeah, for the most part, last week in June, monthly closure has to close after this week. You've got, order books having to close out, quarters ending. No news on Monday. Tuesday, you've got kind of a packed morning. 8:30, you've got core durable goods month on month. And then you've got just durable goods month on month at 8:30. And then 10 a.m., you've got consumer confidence coming out, new home sales coming out, and a manufacturing index coming out at 10. So it should be a busy Tuesday AM session there. Wednesday 9:30, Powell speaking, so you'll have that pretty tentative throughout the morning. Probably going to be a very volatile equities open at 10 on Wednesday, 9:30, 10 on Wednesday. Thursday, you got your final GDP for the quarter releasing, unemployment claims on top of that, and then your quarterly price index for GDP all at 8:30. So that'll be pretty volatile. And then behind that, you have 10 a.m. pending home sales month on month. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, pretty packed, and then Friday you do have a core PCI price index month on month and a consumer sentiment at 10. So for the most part, pretty jam-packed week to end the month. Nothing too crazy. I would say the two big ones would be Powell speaking on Wednesday and your GDP release for the quarter at 8:30. Keep those two marked. But for the most part, that is about it. Anybody have any questions with regards to news this week? All good there? Alrighty, well then let's get into the dollar. Okay, so dollar. A couple things going on with dollar. And if you saw Michael's last video, kind of get a touch what he said. So basically, with dollar, you do have this SIBI right here that we're kind of we just now created going into last week, right? You've got a SIBI right here with this up close candle, and around the open of this up closure, you've got a SIBI. So I'm curious to see how price reacts in there, whether price wants to come up into there and then basically go lower. I think that could make a scenario where you might see price wanting to come and take these lows, depending on how we play in this weekly fair value gap. I still am more bearish than I am bullish. I know we had talked about price coming off of this breaker right here, and just at face value, you've got price respecting this breaker right here, pulling up into it right here, respecting the consequent encroachment of it, no closure above, goes lower, creating this sell side liquidity down here, and then comes back up into it, and tests it again, but a lot more sensitive, right? So with the idea that this breaker will continue to play out, watch to see if this SIBI can hold, and if the up closure, more so the open, is sensitive, because that would act as an order block. When you go down to a daily though, you've got this weekly SIBI right here, but I know that we were talking about this last week. Price came down into this BISI, right? Very sensitive to that. So for me at least, it's a game of, do we come up into here and then go back down into here? Is that something that we could potentially see? Or does price want to come down into here, break this, and go higher, right? That's always a scenario too. So you have to, we've got a volume imbalance up here, a bunch of wicks up here. So there is liquidity on both sides of the market. So I can't, have too much of a hard bias one way or the other. But, I'm kind of watching this. I'm watching this down closure too. So I would be watching the high, the open, and the overall consequent encroachment of this candle. Right, so these are the three levels I would be watching to see. And if I were to take the low of last week, right, anything into discount, if we do deliver lower, I would be watching to see if we potentially want to get that move up, right, at least back up into here, and then see how price reacts here, right? This isn't something where I'm saying it's going to, re-deliver lower or go through and use as support. it's just a wait and see, right? It's a wait and see scenario. You have to wait and see how price plays, and then let the analysts kind of talk. Aside from that, you know, if we don't even decide to deliver into any of those levels, and price just decides to go higher, up into here, I would look to see, one, how sensitive we are to the whole thing, not only just the consequent encroachment, but, you know, at the end of the day, whatever day it trades into, where does the day close, right? Because you know, we could wick up into here, right? We could wick up more into this body, um, and then still close back below it or in it, and I would still look to see price go lower. So I think the biggest takeaway here is, you know, on that weekly SIBI right here, watch the daily closure in and around it, right? If you can finally get candle body closure above it, start to view it as support, right? See what else can, you know, be found on lower time frames in and around here. But for the most part, I'm gonna just kind of wait, let the first part of the week play out, see how the dollar wants to open, see if we open and start going lower into here, because I do not think price will go lower without at least visiting this area. So in my head, if I want price to at least visit this area before going lower and take lows, if we do deliver into here and we do end up going lower to start the week, I would start to try to find a low in here to at least drive us up into here, and then I can sit there and I can be a student, right? I can watch, I can see, I can wait. If that's not the case and price does not deliver lower and it does go higher, well, the only place that I would be looking or interested in it to see it go higher is this obvious weekly SIBI, or if I take the consequent encroachment of this wick in here, right? If I take the consequent encroachment of that wick, you could very well get something where price comes up into here, hits that consequent encroachment, and then goes lower into here, right? And then from there could go higher, right? So until we can get up into this weekly SIBI, how we want to do that, depending on how the week opens and where we are when we start trading in towards Tuesday and Wednesday, is something that I will be looking for. Leading that with ES. Now, before Henry, you know, goes into ES, I will say I'm still bullish on ES. So if I'm still bullish on ES, I still obviously am looking for lower prices on dollar. You know, there's a lot going on. I know Michael was talking a little bit about it, but you know, I think for the most part, I don't see us going higher than these highs right now, and I think that will remain. You know, my somewhat hard bias will remain bearish unless we can get above this high right here. As long as we can stay below this, I'd still be bearish, but obviously if we do get daily closure above this weekly SIBI, I will have the mindset of price does close back above here, comes into here, I'll be looking to see if it can be used as support, right? I will be looking for the inversion of that. So for the most part, that's kind of my take on dollar. Kind of just waiting and watching to see how you play start the week going into Tuesday, Wednesday, and then obviously depending on where we are Thursday, we have that GDP release. So just kind of sitting still there, waiting to see, you know, how the rest of the month wants to close. You know, if we go to a monthly on dollar, right, we're still in a range, right? We have not gone anywhere since February, right? So that can be frustrating as a trader, but that's a reality of trading, right? And I know that, you know, if you're looking at it from a monthly, yes, there's buy side sitting in here, but this could very well stay open, right? For a couple weeks out of the year, I thought that we were going to maybe drop into here, but I'm thinking that we could potentially leave this for a later date. And I think the main draw, your main draw on liquidity, is going to be coming in and filling this, right? Yes, notice we've been sensitive to this, but we've already, every time we tapped into it, when we tapped into it right here, we came up, we couldn't even get into this, right? So we came back down, tapped it again, and still the reaction is still lackluster, right? It's not there. So now that we're coming in and we're kind of now already back down, even though it's showing sensitivity, not getting to the consequent encroachment, it's got no follow through, right? There's no follow through off of it. So really, it's just kind of, to me, engineering liquidity, and that's to me the main draw, right? You've got clean lows down in here, and I at least want to see if price can find a way to, maybe open up the month a little bit right here. But I really would not want to see any of these monthly highs get taken, right? I don't want to see this one get taken. I want to see this one kind of remain in some form of bearish order flow. It might come all the way up like this, and you might have like something like this where you've got this little kind of trend line liquidity build up, but I want to see price go lower, right? I want to see us at least come and take these lows and see how we react as the consequent encroachment of it, right? Because that's really going to tell us a lot of the behavior behind it. Because I'm not saying that it's going to go below this. It's not my job, and that's too far away. But for now, at least, we took out April's high, right? We took out April's high, and in here, in March, we took out February and January's high, right? So you have your yearly high coming in at 105,883. So it's kind of meticulously taken liquidity where it needed to kind of take it. Did not have the strength to even pull up into the city. So I think that even if for the case of we do get down into here, I wouldn't be surprised if we do find our way back up here eventually. Or maybe it's a while before we come back there, right? Because this is somewhat already balanced, right? You have buy side already offered and sell side already offered. And price is already given one try, two tries, two tries right here, and then technically another 3 tries, coming off this, right? Price has dug into this enough to where if it was, bullish, it would have at least came and, started to eat at some of this imbalance. But it's showing me, one, it's probably already balanced because of the way it's reacted, right? The way it hasn't even been able to get in there. It shows me that the dollar is probably a lot more weaker than things may seem. Even though we haven't had follow through to the downside either, we already still are kind of building up lows in here to kind of attack. Aside from that, that's really about it for dollar. If I go to 12-hour, watch this breaker on a 12-hour. Right, I would be watching to see this. Right, low, high. We take out the low. We take out the high with displacement. Right, this would be something I would be watching to see if we do want to dig into the first part of the week, going lower. See how we play this. Right, you got from low to high of the week. You got equilibrium sitting in there. And you also have displacement. And you also have this acting as an order block. Right? So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 areas of confluence all nested together in between. Looks like 102,700 into 102,500, call it. So this would be an area where I would be watching to see how price plays. When price comes down into here, I would be expecting some form of turnaround to go higher, unless we go higher before that, right? If we go up into that weekly SIBI and then come back down, right? I'd be looking for this to just be some form of speed bump, right? To go somewhat higher, fill whatever it needs, and then go back lower through it, right? And then use that as inversion, right? And then start to aim for the lows, right? You've got equal lows in here, obviously equal lows in here, and there's really nothing else that's been, like, this is everything's been filled, right? Everything's been balanced for this whole price swing. So once we get below this low, you should see, for the most part, a low resistance liquidity run down into here, right? And maybe you're patient enough as a trader to let all this unfold until you get below this low, right? And once we get below this low, then you're really looking to, buy ES, because you know that this is going to be the path of least resistance into the liquidity, right? All right, that should be your main draw, is these lows down in here. But other than that, that's about it for me on dollar. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns for me? Main thing, take away that weekly SIBI, seeing how price plays once it delivers into it. You could use this 12-hour breaker to see how price plays before getting into it, or kind of use that as a roadmap to see how we might get to it, or if we do arrive, if we do push up into here, into that weekly SIBI, right, and we do start to come lower, maybe you wait to see this get broken, right? Because if this is not met, if that's not met yet before going lower, then maybe you want to see that discount array fail, right? Because I think another good headspace to have is when you don't have to automatically be bearish when it gets up here, right? I'm not automatically bearish, right? I'm waiting to see. But even if you do get that turnaround, right? Let's say price does come up into here, right? And you do get that turnaround. Maybe you still don't want to be bearish yet. Maybe you want to see this whole area fail, right? This is a very confluenced area for the form of price going higher. And if that can fail, right? Maybe it's not until, price gets through there, and then you're waiting to see this act as resistance, and now you can start to be confident and hold weight towards your bias in trades, right? And it's really just this run right in here, from here to here, that you're really worried about, right? You don't have to, you can expect all this stuff and anticipate it, but you don't have to be a trader maybe until here, right? Until you see that break. Because even if I'm up here and I'm bearish and we haven't even touched any of this yet, well, I still have to know that price can be very reactive to this area. And until I can see that it fails, then I can start to weigh heavy on my opinion, right? Something to just think about. Anybody have any questions for me, comments or concerns before I pass it off to Henry? Alrighty. All good there. Hopefully that made sense. Henry, you are good to share screen.
Okay, so here's where we're at on ES. We talked about this area last week. Strong imbalance here in that little liquidity void there in between. Didn't quite get up into there. What we did reach to is the low of this last I pushed in on monthly. Just tapping into that bearish order block and then trading lower off of there. There's a weekly chart. You can see we're trading inside of this steady wheel. Traded above it, and then came back down to the low, and left it with this unit here. I'm fairly neutral on this at the current moment, just because we have traded off of a higher time frame point of interest here, And the dollar, while I'm still relatively bearish on the dollar, if you're just like person, it has traded above that daily city now. So that kind of puts me into a neutral space on ES. I'd like to see a bit more price action develop to get an idea of if we're going to trade higher or lower. I would not say that I'm bearish on ES yet, though. I'd say I'm more neutral bullish, because I haven't seen anything yet to turn my bias to bearish. If we go down into a daily chart, the only thing about this that appears bearish to me is that we hit a higher time frame point of interest and then traded over a discount rate, which is this theory, this here. So we delivered higher, repriced lower, trade back into it, and now this is that balanced price range, tapped back into it here, and then traded lower. So deliver higher, redelivered, and then it trades away to balance it, and it's rebooked right down, and we just back down. If we look at this dealing range though, so our most recent swing low to the high, we're now back inside of a discount. So while this was a discount, it was in a premium within this dealing range. So we can expect that this may fail if price is going to temporarily trade more. But now we're back in a discount. We've got this theory, this right here. So the next point of interest for me is right here. I'm curious to see how this reacts earlier in the week. So I'm going to use the early side of the week to get an idea of where we potentially could trade this. But if we trade down into here and then start to trade higher, we can look for higher prices and trade back up into this area that we discussed last week. If we trade over this, close over it, then we could potentially see this as a point of inversion. Like this. And then we're towards the side right here. So that's the main area of interest for me that I'm watching. I wouldn't really start to turn super bearish on this until there's some sort of shift under this low, and ideally with some clear displacement if it is going to trade lower. Because this low here, I believe, is also at this year on the weekly chart. So we have an inefficiency there as well. So I want to see this traded through with some obvious displacement to turn bearish on this. Until that's the case, I'm staying neutral to bullish. We look at this year as well, and this year up to this high. That just puts us in a discount as well, trading into there. So I don't want to see it just trade into there and then trade off of it. You want to see some clear intention to trade lower. So it's trading through there, and then it's starting to use premium arrays to continue moving price lower. It's not just trading down and then trading back up through premium arrays. But yeah, really just looking into the beginning of the week, we want to use that price action on Monday and Tuesday and potentially into the AM on Wednesday to get an idea of what's going to happen. Are we using this as an area to move price back higher now that we're in a discount? Or is this going to be traded below, closed below, and then watch for inversion here as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday to trade down? Any questions there? Oh, I can touch on this real quick too. So earlier in the week, this is something that you can use. If you see the potential, like if you're looking at this deal range right on the week, you can see a discount here as an area for price to trade back into, and an inefficiency resting below. And we have this pussy right here, which is closed below on Tuesday. Now you can use this information going into the rest of the week. Right? So if this is not going to support price, then we can potentially look at this as that balanced price range and see how this price trade back up into here and you can identify a premium rate inside of this BISI and use it as a version to trade down here. So if you go into 1 hour, you can see right here, trade below right here, and then reprice back up into the consequent encroachment of this BISI, and then trade lower off of it. Then, looking at the time this takes place, that's 8 and 9. So that's going to be your New York AM session. What are we also trading up to when we hit the consequent encroachment? What about, yeah, if we go into 15, we've got our step plus candle, your bearish order block. This is your New York AM closing, so that's the time when we're looking to trade. Shift right here. Buy side is closed right here in the morning session. Shift lower right there. Trades up into bearish order block in the city. So that can be your seller right there, looking for lower prices, as we've now traded below the BISI and are trading back into the constant encroachment and into the premium order. If you don't take down, then you can look for your next shift. So this would be at the parent price swing right here. So you can look for that low as your shift in market structure. And then try to get replay right there with this zoom thing. That's your shift. We go down into the 5-minute and then trading back up into premium of this clearing range. So above equilibrium into a SIBI. That can be your sell right there and you're opening down. Right? So 930 right here is the Judas swing up into a premium and the SIBI to trade back lower. And then if you don't get that sell, then you have your silver bullet right here inside this city to trade down lower away from this area that's getting loaded. Any questions there? Yes. Check the chat. Oh, that's all good. I'll pause it back up to you guys. Oh, that's something, Joe. On ES, would there be a bearish order lock before the high? On daily, are you talking about this candle here? I mean, potentially, I suppose so. I wouldn't watch it as that just yet because there hasn't really been. I mean, it's utilized that way here. I can't really speak to it as clearly as Michael could, obviously, because I mean this is potentially that change in the state of delivery that would define the order lock if this is going to trade lower. But if this is just coming into a discount here and trading into this BISI, then if you are looking at this as your order block, then potentially it's just a speed bump if this is going to trade back down. So you could watch it that way. You could pay, mark your levels out and see what kind of response you're getting at the opening and at the main threshold right there. So you can see here when you trade back through it here, how this guy's responding in this area. And you do start to see that responsiveness here. Yeah, change the state of yeah. Okay. couple of confluence, potential balance price maybe inverted for that. And yeah, definitely. It's a good area to watch. I mean, now that we've traded into a discount, you can start watching those premium rays to see what kind of reaction you get. So looking at this upward candle, look at this upward candle here, and look at the mean threshold. So are you seeing those areas be responsive? And is there, other levels of confluence in those areas? Like looking at your 4 hour and your 1 hour, are we trading into those levels aligned with a premium in efficiency, for example? And then is it responsive and trading lower, or are we trading back above it and potentially inverting a premium ready to trade back? So fairly neutral at this point, but yeah, we want to see what happens earlier in the week to get a good judge of whether we're going to trade down the sell side here or use this as an area to support a continued pressure and higher up into its target. Does it matter we're in a premium on the weekly time frame? Yeah, I mean, that's something you'd pay attention to for sure. If you're looking at this hold range here, then we're pretty well into premium. May even be at that optimal trade entries level. Yeah. So that's why this is an area where we start to get neutral, right? Because we are in that premium and could trade back lower into that discount area. But at the same time, if this is going to continue higher, it could do that into inefficiencies that we have learned about. So now that we're in a premium, it's hard to remain heavily bullish, but we can shift into that kind of neutral bias and we start to just use the information we have right here to see what the potential outcome is. It's easier to be really bullish right here as we're using discount rates and then doing an immediate rebalance and trading higher than it is to be up here. Yeah. Makes more sense about you.
One thing, wait, can you keep the screen right there? I'm gonna annotate something. One thing I'm just watching for too, though, and I'm just something to keep in the back of your mind is this could technically be used as a breaker for near term.
Mm-hmm.
So I would want to see, like we've been talking about, like you're gonna want the top half of this to kind of be, utilized. So even as price dips down into here, right, we still very well could just push right back up into here, which would then give us a form of sell side liquidity to then raid, right? And then whatever down closure you have in there could be used as a breaker. And then from there, at this point, once you can get a reaction to go lower, like right there, at this point, I would be starting to get like pretty heavily bearish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just obviously a scenario, but something to think about.
And you can see the midpoint there is aligned with that daily sell side in this BISI as well.
Yeah.
So that'll be an interesting area to note. I'm not too well versed on how important or what kind of how much respect to give PDRAs that are outside of that range, but we still utilize these inefficiencies.
Yeah, because I mean, even this was kind of swayed, but ended up playing out for the most part. Overstretched a little bit because obviously you have an inefficiency in here, but like obviously there's an inefficiency in here, but even in here, you know, this was, I don't know when this was, September of 2022, almost a whole year later, September of 2021, and September of 2022. So I guess there's some weight to them, but obviously I wouldn't hold too much weight to it. I think it's just an observation more than anything.
Yeah, it's good to know, and something you can journal as you see how it responds every week. ESU contract has some gaps that far back. Yeah, so Michael talked about that in one of his recent videos. You can look at that continuous contract, but the one that you really want to be charting on both is the current contract, because these inefficiencies that you see despite the lower level of trading that's occurring on the current contract, these are the inefficiencies that are important and that you want to watch for. And you're not going to see this the same way on a continuous chart. So yeah, it's good to know. I was under the same impression too. I was using the continuous contract for a while, and then I heard him mention it in a recent video. So yeah, you want to be on ESU. Yeah, yeah. Yep, just the way it is. Gotta redraw all the newly open gaps in. Carson, you have any trades to share? Or?
Yeah, I got one. I took one trade this week. I'll go into TradingView first, then I'll show my execution. Okay, so this was on Wednesday. I know we're going to talk about PM session, looking for, you know, that lunch liquidity. So I'll go over my trade and then I'll show you guys the executions. But for the most part, obviously, you know, I cannot stress this enough. The main thing within your trading should be your main draw on liquidity, right? So I've delineated obviously 130, and I just put it all the way to 4, because I think, you know, anything can happen. Whether you want to cut it to 330, you know, that's up to you. I just like at least extending it out to 4. 130 to 4 to me is like the full PM session. I know you've got, you know, different power hours, you know, 2 to 3 for the silver bullet, and or 3 to 4 following FOMC or stuff like that. So I just extend all that to 4. But really, I cannot stress this enough. The main thing within your trading career needs to be, where is my draw on liquidity, right? Because that's going to tell you why price is going to go the direction it goes. So going into Wednesday PM session, obviously clear main draw on liquidity. Not only is this going to be your New York AM high, but we also during lunch engineered more buy side liquidity, right? You've got relative equal highs, clear draw on liquidity. Now I understand that there's relative equal lows in here, but I have been bullish on ES. If you can see, we do have some minor break in liquidity, right? These are not as relative, right? This goes a little bit lower and pulls up, and then when it comes down to test the low, you have a failure to go lower, right? If price was going to go lower, it would have taken this low, right? So you have opposing liquidity taken right here. Comes up, no shift in market structure, comes down, failure swing, comes into this projection block right here. Let me highlight this. Comes into this projection block right here, and then goes higher, right? That's going to be your initial shift. But then price basically distorts itself, excuse me. Michael likes to use that word, time distortion, right? Price has broken the structure in here, right? All this has now been purged, and really, you're looking at this high, and this high, and this high as your signal of like shift, right? So we've shifted, but we've shifted at what time? Well, it's going right into the lunch hour. So price is going to chop throughout the lunch hour. If you can notice, we make this low right at 12 o'clock, right? So that's going to be your lunch hour low. price takes out the low, pulls all the way back up, and then comes back down. And this is kind of where I was entering in. I got in a little bit early, and I had my stops on some of my entries were a little too tight. So I had, for the most part, my goal was to kind of play this as a breaker. So I really was playing, you know, if you go from here to here, you know, I obviously saw this as a clear draw on liquidity too. But I was playing more so in and around the equilibrium, right? We had this BISI right here. We had that BISI right there. And then I was almost trying to utilize this as a breaker in here. And my stop was a little too, I had two entries that my stop was a little too low. So, whatever that was. So, my stop was a little too tight on some of my entries. So for the main part, or for the most part, my stop was at this low, right? But I had two entries that had my stop right here, right? So as I'm entering in throughout all of this, I'm just kind of scaling positions all over here. This knocked me out of two of my entries, and you'll see that, right? That low knocked me out on some of my entries. And then once we were able to kind of get back above this, post 130, I was entering in back in here. And obviously, my two main targets were obviously the clear draw and liquidity. So you'll see me take partials right here. You'll see me take partials at this 1.5 extension, and then you'll see me get knocked out at trailing stop in here, right? I trailed my stop all the way up to here before it was able to knock me out. Now, before I show you my executions, there was also, you know, you can be a seller in this too, right? So for the most part, you have a breaker in here that you could have played also, right? With this SIBI, right? You could have been a seller in here, and you could have aimed for these lows. Could have aimed for these lows. You might not have gotten them, but you would have gotten enough to take partials, right? You would have been able to take partials here. You would have been able to take partials, you know, if you do your extensions, right? You would have been able to get almost all three, all the way up to 2.5. You would have been able to kind of get partials in there. So that's something that I didn't necessarily play, but I had saw, you know, after the fact. But for the most part, this was kind of the whole idea, was to draw liquidity to these relative equal highs. You had opposing liquidity taken out in the morning, lunch liquidity taken out in the form of lows. And then obviously, aside from that, you know, if you were to take from this high or from this low all the way to this high, right? Just being a buyer at a discount, right? Seeing what can happen and unfold down in here. You know, even if I were to delete all this and you were to look at it like this, here's your draw on liquidity. Opposing liquidity taken out. Opposing liquidity taken out. Current price swing high to low or low to high. You're at equilibrium. See what sets up below the equilibrium. And I mean, even this is considered a breaker, right? You got a low, a high, we take out the low. Even though there's no displacement, there doesn't always have to be displacement. But you could have, you know, utilized this potentially, depending on where your stop was. You can see the candle body closure. Once we break through that, candle body closure still respects. And we had one more wick down in here. You could have used this as an order block. right? You could use this as an order block, this down closure right here that takes out this low, even though price kind of does not necessarily give that clean retracement right here, it's still obviously offered liquidity, right? No, the structure wasn't necessarily broken, and this would kind of be a low risk entry. You still have the same format, right? And obviously, if you're waiting till 130, right? If you're waiting till 130, oops, yeah, right from here, any candle you're kind of buying on past that is good, right? You're not going to get in too much drawdown, depending on obviously where you're buying. Maybe you wanted to wait until this got inverted. Well, it didn't quite give it to you in here, but you still could have been a buyer in here, right? Any of these buying off of any of these down closures would have still done you well. You didn't necessarily have a whole lot of drawdown, whatever the case is. Here, I'll show you my executions. Right, so you can see right here, my stop loss getting hit on 2 of these entries off this rejection block. If I would have put all at the low, they would have been fine. You can see me re-enter in here. Right, you can kind of see there's a, I'm buying kind of off this BISI, and then obviously as price is coming down into here, I'm kind of just using this whole area to average down in. Get stopped out twice, the other 2 stay, and then I add in, and then you can see partial, 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 right? Trying to buy on down closure and sell on up closure, and then you can see I get stopped out at break even, or not break even, I get stopped out in profit right here. Perfectly fine. All right, this is my only trade this week. I have more increased risk, so I'm trying to trade less, and when I do trade, get as much as I can out of it. But for the most part, that was my trade for the week. Only thing I really could have done better here was not necessarily have those stops as tight at first. You know, if I would have just thrown them all into the low, I would have been fine. It was just a little bit of a stretch for me to have all of the risk. I wanted to see if the rejection block would actually hold. Something that I was kind of just personally trying out to see how, instead of having the stop at the low, have it at that rejection block. And for the most part, it didn't necessarily work out for me. You know, obviously it stopped me out, but just trying to figure, you know, just personally figuring out how I can maybe better my risk, and see if there's any little tiny ways I can potentially cut the risk. What was my terminus on this trade? Here I can show you. So terminus on this trade, if I go to a 15-minute, I actually was aiming for, there was 2 main things I was aiming for. My main thing was just this. I was eyeing this. So you can see obviously buying down in here, playing this. This was the draw on liquidity. This was that clear buy side liquidity on a 1 minute. That's your clear draw. I wanted to see, obviously, I kind of had 2 terminuses. It was a terminus whether or not we were going to break structure, or a terminus or whether or not we were going to keep structure. Internal terminus, basically stating if we continue going lower and we don't necessarily take any of these highs, this would be the terminus, right? I wanted to at least see the bottom half of this get filled. But if for whatever reason I was going to leave a runner, I was going to take these highs in here. So I had 2 thoughts. All right, we're going to push back up into this area and continue going lower. That's what happened. So I had obviously taken partials up here, but you could tell that I had held a runner, right? That one that stopped me out in profit. I was holding with the idea that we could potentially come and take these highs. And if we were able to take those highs, potentially obviously have a run on all of these highs, right? I think that that's also another thing going into next week is once we can start to get above, now for me it would be these highs. Once we can get above these highs, I think we'll start to run all of these highs in here. But for now, we're still playing somewhat internal. So even if I am a buyer next week, right, my internal terminus would necessarily be in here, right? And then my external terminus would be out here onto this set of highs. Or these set of highs still. Because if it runs these highs, it'll run these highs. And if it runs these highs, it'll run these highs. Notice how they're all open, right? And if it runs these highs, it'll run these highs. And these highs. And these highs. And these highs. Potentially, right? Look at all those sets of liquidity that are there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sets of equal highs, right? But even like last week, right? It doesn't necessarily have to take that external yet. Because, I mean, you still have, this kind of has a little break in liquidity, but you've got relative equal highs in here still. This one has a little breaker in liquidity, it's not as relative. But price could still come up into here and go lower. Right? Kind of what it did, kind of like what it did in here. So I think once it'll be clear once it decides if it actually wants to go higher. Another thing is just look at how lethargic this whole move down has been. Right? Look at the move up and look at the move down. Right? Deep retracements, basically just going to the high and stopping and turning around. When in reality this was different, right? The amount of time it took us a couple hours to go the range it took us to go a couple days. So very lackluster, very lethargic on the way down. Not easy to trade either. You know, it's been, and this was also, you know, another thing too, is if you guys can remember Henry talking about this daily, civvy, right? So just how price played off this, I couldn't necessarily be too worried about price taking these highs, just because I knew prices coming off, inverting that BISI, excuse me, not civvy. Price was coming off an inverted BISI, so I knew that we were still kind of going lower, and I also had the idea too that we could potentially run, even though I'm bullish and stuff like that, I can still change that for the most part in some instances and have price call to go lower for like areas like this, right? Right? Because there's this CIBI BISI kind of confluence area right here, but there's also a BISI down in here that I assumed we were potentially going to draw to, because we were overextended. And also NASDAQ had the BISI, but NASDAQ didn't have the CIBI. So if they both had the BISI and only one of them had the CIBI, it was a lot more likely in my mind that price was going to draw to the CIBI, or the BISI, excuse me. But yeah, that was my one trade for the week. Nothing too crazy. Any questions, comments, concerns on that? Henry, you have any trades that you want to go over? Where did he go? For the most part, too, at a quick glance, if I'm going to look at the weekly profiles, Henry, I think you might be muted.
Yeah, my bad. Just
There you are. Did you have anything you wanted to go over?
I don't have any trades to show, but
Lewis said, "Hey guys, how much weight do you guys put on equal lows or equal highs?" I put a lot of weight on them.
Mhm.
I put a lot of weight on equal lows and equal highs because that's where prices. That to me, I firmly believe that's where the market's going. Right? It's a lot easier said than done, but the market's going to go to equal lows and equal highs. It doesn't necessarily have to go to a specific set every single time. You have to understand order flow and stuff like that. There's things that you can put on it, but that's where you start, right? Equal lows. Where did price go to this week? These equal lows right here, right? Look at these equal highs. Look at these equal lows. Equal highs. Equal highs. Equal highs. Equal highs. Equal highs and equal lows are super, super important. That's where you start, right? Then you can start adding order flow on it. Then you can start, figuring out where price is going to go is the key, right? It's not that it's the easiest or hardest thing. I think that there's more things that are tied to it, but you figure out where price is most likely to go, and then you start from there, right? You backtrack. Okay, price is gonna go to a set of equal highs or equal lows, right? Okay, you find both, right? Let me just do this for a second. You've got equal highs, and let's say you've got equal lows. Right? You got two. Equal highs and equal lows. Right? Two clear draw on liquidity. Well, obviously you don't want them to be clear, because right, then that's like, how do you know which one? Well, it's a lot harder when they're both there. But let's just say, for example, they are there, right? That's where you start to pair in higher time frames, right? What does my higher time frames look like? Well, if I'm bullish, I need to have more weight tied to these. If I'm bearish, I need to have more weight tied to these. But then also, let's say you're neutral on the two, right? Let's say you're neutral on the two. You don't really have a good gauge of the higher time frames or anything like that. Well, that's where you can start to find your model. Because let's say it could draw all the way up to here and take out this relative equal highs. Okay. Did it give you any form of model to get there? No. Right? Let's just say it didn't. Price just went higher. Price just goes higher. Candle after candle. Literally giving you no form of entry technique or model at all. Well, there's nothing you could have done. But then let's say it takes out that liquidity. Price comes down into here. It gives you this. Right? Gives you something like this. Where now you have opposing liquidity taken. Opposing liquidity taken. Opposing liquidity taken, and price has a breaker in here with a civvy, right? And it gives you a model here, right? Stop can go up here. Well, whether or not you're bearish or bullish or anything like that, there's a model playing out here. You have opposing liquidity taken, you have a shift in market structure, you have an imbalance, you have a breaker, you have a clear draw on liquidity down in here, and let's say it doesn't even go into there. Let's just say it goes all the way, let's just say it doesn't even take the equal lows, and it just goes into equilibrium, right? Well, guess what? This right here is a trade. It could continue going down here, or it could go all the way back up here. But at least having this to build off of and an actual model to play from, you don't have to get all of this. You don't need that. That's not needed, right? Maybe there's an inefficiency down in here, right? Maybe there's a BISI down in here, right? You could play that. Take a partial here, take a partial here. Trail your stop, get stopped out maybe, right here when price comes back up. Guess what? You made money here, you made money here, and you made money when you stopped you out in profit. What's wrong with that? You didn't even play the draw on liquidity, but it was key to know, okay, the opposing liquidity has been taken. We have a clear draw. I'm about to sneeze on one. Sorry. You have a clear draw on liquidity, and it's not going to give it to you every single time, but maybe it does. Maybe it does come all the way down here, and that would be your terminus, right? But the draw on liquidity is not going to play every single time, but it's going to give you a rhyme and reason as to where you can start to build a model from, how to maybe not only a view, why would price not necessarily keep going higher? Because of the opposing liquidity. Sometimes it's not even knowing the draw on liquidity, it's knowing this is the best way I can put it. Sometimes it's not always knowing what liquidity is about to be taken or taken next, but even more vice versa, what liquidity has already been taken. Maybe it's not clear to you that this is the draw on liquidity, but it's clear that buy side has already been taken. So that could call for a retracement, that could call for a reversal, and maybe you're in that, right? Because I can tell you right now, even if this is a clear draw on liquidity and I'm down in here and there's just relative equal lows and there's no model to play from, and it just keeps going, I just have to let it go, right? And that's just discipline. Like how disciplined are you? One thing that is crucial in this, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter how long you've been trading, like you have to be disciplined. Like none of this matters if there's no discipline tied to it. Like it doesn't matter what model you have, how long you've been trading, how clear the draw on liquidity is, how strong higher time frame or none of that matters, because you can get in a trade and you can win a trade and then however you decide to handle yourself and your trading after that, right? You could have a great trade and not know how to handle it and then go and lose it all. Or you could have a great trade and just a little bit poor proper risk management and not get what you wanted out of the trade and continue to revenge trade and end up spiraling again. Like there's so many areas where it's so easy to slip up and spiral. You have to be disciplined. None of this works. None of this works without discipline. There's not a model that you can use. There's not a prop firm or an account that you can be successful on if you don't have discipline. Like discipline is the driver in all of it, right? How disciplined are you with your risk? How disciplined are you with your reward? How disciplined are you coming off of a win? How disciplined are you coming off of a loss? How disciplined are you just being patient, letting price present itself to you, right? How many times do you find yourself just in the market, not really paying attention, but just pressing something, wanting to feel something, right? Sometimes, and this was part of my career, sometimes I'd get so zoomed in, I would have a 1 minute, a 5 minute, a 15 minute, a 1 hour, and a daily screen all in front of my face, and I find myself just super deep into the 1 minute, and I'm sitting there and I'm in trades, and I'm sitting there, and the only thing I'm focused on is the 1 minute ticking, right? I'm not paying attention of what else is going on. I'm not balancing my mental with, okay, here's where the dollar is, this is what the daily looks like, here's where the 1 hour is, this is what the 15-minute looks like, here's what time it is, here's how much more time we have left in the hour, here's how much time we have left. I'm not factoring all these things in. I'm just dialed in on one thing. I'm not focused. I'm too focused on one thing, actually. All that is discipline, right? It's just discipline. I know I kind of got on a rant there, but you can share whatever you like. And if you think you're disciplined enough, you can click into whatever you want here. I'm just ranting right now. If you think you're disciplined enough, find ways to be more disciplined, because you can always there's always this gap, this void, this BISI or SIBI that you have in your trading career that it's impossible to be perfect. And that's what's beautiful about this, is like, you have to understand that you can always be a little bit more disciplined. You can always do a little bit more, or not do a little bit, or do less, right? Sometimes doing less is doing more. And I think that if you continue to just have this, oh, okay, you know what? I won this trade. Whatever I did worked, I'm going to do that. Well, yes and no. Because you can always grow. You can always get a little bit better, right? And I think I've said this time and time again. You have to find that next opponent, right? What's that next opponent? Well, is it a bigger lot size, a bigger account, a bigger, goal to reach, right? Because if you're aiming for 2-3% a week, great. Do that for 6 to 8 straight weeks. See how consistent you can get on it. But I was talking to somebody last night, and they worked for a wealth management company, and he was telling me about how the head guy there does about 9%, 9.5% a year, which is great. Like, it's a total different ball game when you have a lot of money, like a lot of money, like $500 million. 9.5% is fine. But think about that, and that industry, and how 9.5% a year. How doable is that? When you know this stuff, it's very doable. But it's also, you can do a lot more. Doesn't matter how much money you have. Because I'm sitting there and I'm listening to him and I'm giving him thumbs up and I'm smiling, like 9.5% is great. But it's like 9.5%? That's all you got in 365 days? That could be a week. That could be a month. That could be a day with this stuff. But let's say you do get 9% a day. Are you disciplined enough to stop? One thing I've also found out too within trading is, when you start to go on these like little win streaks, or even just have a really good trade, you skew your perception of the market very easily. You start to, and it's such a hard thing to battle. I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy. You kind of start to trick yourself in thinking that each and every trade's going to be a little bit, it's going to be that easy. Or you start to see things that aren't actually there. And you might see a little bit of your model, but it might not fully be your model. And the next thing you know, you take a loss, and then it slaps you in the face, because you're like, I could have sworn I saw exactly what I just saw here. But trading is a game where you see one thing and you make money. And then you can see the exact same thing and not make money. And it can be completely wrong, right? That's why you have to detach. That's why you have to be numb to it. Because even though the thing that has played out multiple times, X, Y, and Z, you've back tested it, you've got plenty of results from it, there's still going to be times where you see the same exact thing that you've seen 100 million times that has made you money, and it doesn't make you money. And it's the person that can't live with that, and it irks them, and they need to try to fix and change and do all this stuff at once. That's the person that gets hurt the most in this. It's the person that just, all right, there'll be another trade. I'm not too worried about it. I know that's going to happen. Like, that person stays longer in the game of trading than the person that can't take that loss and can't realize that maybe you did nothing wrong. There are times where you will do nothing wrong in the market. You will wait when you need to wait. You will execute when you need to execute. You will see everything that you need to see. You will have everything on the table that you need to go ahead and enter that trade. You'll have the correct stop loss. You'll have the correct idea of when you want to take partials and when you want to have that terminus, and it's still not going to work. And if you can't allow that to happen, if you can't allow that loss to happen without any backlash or remorse, you're going to get hurt. You're not going to be able to live with this stuff. Like, there are losses that just are the cost of trading. Like, you're gonna lose. I know this whole event started from how much weight do you hold on equal highs and equal lows, but it's true. Like, you have to know that it doesn't matter. You can have all of the weapons at your arsenal and you're still going to lose. And you just have to, like, be okay with it. You have to let that go. Like I say it all the time. Attached to nothing, connected to everything. Okay, end of rant. I'm sorry. And you're not. It's weird too, though. Like, you're going to. I see some people. Like, for me, it took years and years and years and years to try to figure this out. I've seen people come in here. Like, I look at Henry. Henry's on like year 2, like year 3, like year 2 and 3, and he gets it a lot quicker. He got it and is getting it a lot quicker than I did. The way he handles himself, the way he handles his trades, the way, like, his composure. He gained a lot more composure earlier on in his trading career than I did. I was gung-ho about a lot of this stuff for a long time. So when I see, like, it's all different. You cannot compare. You know, comparison is the thief of joy. You have to just know what you need to do, focus on yourself, and Michael put it in a tweet. Michael put it in a tweet, and I think I took a screenshot of it. Yeah. He says, I believe the things that make trading a reality for those who seek it are 8 things, right? Passion, right? Passion, the biggest thing about passion is you're going to figure it out. You're going to sacrifice what you need to sacrifice. You're going to do what you need to do. You're going to not do what you don't need to do. You're going to just figure it out, right? Any man who has a why can bear almost anyhow. That's passion, right? You're going to cut out what you need to in your life. You're going to figure all that stuff out. That's easy, right? Passion's easy. It's something that you either have it or you don't. You don't have passion, you're not going to get it anywhere. You have passion, you'll figure it out. Doesn't matter how long. There's no time limit to passion. It's not, okay, you know what, I'm going to be passionate about this for a month, and if it doesn't work, I'll go find something else to be passionate about. That's not passion, right? Passion is, I'll die trying, right? I'm just going to keep going. Accountability, right? Accounting for every little thing you do in the market. Did you journal? Did you do the things inside and outside of the market that you're supposed to be? The person you are outside of the market is going to directly correlate to the person you are inside the market. Easy. There's no gray area there, right? Is your room clean? Your room is an external reflection of your mind. If you're sitting there and you've got a messy room, clothes everywhere, don't make your bed too often. I'm not going to sit here and say you need to make your bed the second you wake up every single day. That's not how it works. But if your room is clean, if your area and your environment is clean, it's going to be an external reflection of your mind. Clean room, clean mind. Dirty room, dirty mind, right? You have to have accountability for the things that you do, right? Should you have taken that trade at that risk? Should you have gotten back in after taking 3 losses in a row? Should you have continued to trade after hitting your weekly goal, right? Accountability is crucial. If you're not accountable to anything, you're dead to the game. Responsibility, right? Kind of go hand in hand with accountability, right? The things that you're accountable for are the same things you're responsible for. You have to have responsibility, right? And responsibility can also mean, all right, I don't trade Mondays. I'm not going to trade Mondays. I don't care what it looks like, how good the trade is, how good the model is, how big the daily range is. I don't care. I'm responsible and accountable for the things that I say I'm responsible and accountable for. Aside from that, I don't care what you do. I don't care what he or she does. They don't press my buttons. I don't press their buttons. That's their game. This is my game. That's their lane. This is my lane, right? A simple written model. You don't have to have every single model, right? I love breakers. And if I can get a breaker with displacement inside of it, with opposing liquidity taken, and all that is below an equilibrium or above an equilibrium of some form of price swing, I love that, right? I can write that on a business card. I can write it a million times over. I can sit there and picture it in my head. Super easy, right? Simple written model, something that I can easily see time and time and time again. I know it's not going to always work, and I know I can get 2 of the most identical trades in the world, and one of them will hit and one of them won't, and that's just the game of trading. That's why risk management is the most important, right? If you can't manage your risk, you can't manage yourself, you can't manage any of it, right? You have to be able to know how to lose money responsibly and professionally, right? A simple written model, that's super, super easy, that you can see time and time and time again. Michael said it multiple times and it stuck with me. If you cannot explain your model to a 2-year-old, you're not going to be able to explain it really to yourself. If you have some complex model with all these numbers and lines and all this stuff, it's going to be hard to sit there and see it happen day and day and day and day and day. You're going to go cross-eyed. You're going to get confused. And if you have something that's too complex, that means that you might only see it happen once a month, right? You want to see something that you can get consistent on, something that's constantly occurring, right? Number 5, impeccable risk control, the hardest one, right? I would say 5 and 6 are actually the hardest, but number 5, impeccable risk control, right? Risk can be losing money, and risk can be holding on to gains, right? How well do you hold on to gains? You can win a trade, but if you give it right back, is it even a win? Did it even do anything for you? It didn't necessarily do anything for you. You're back to ground zero, right? And it's okay. You might get to areas in your trading career where you are kind of going back and forth. You win a trade, you give it back. You win a trade, you give it back. That's okay. It's just, it's not okay when you're doing that consistently, right? It's perfectly fine if you're getting wins and giving them back and not going under. But if you're constantly giving and going back, then you're going to find yourself in a loophole. You got to get out of it. You can go there, but you can't stay there. You have to figure out how to get out of that. And with that is just impeccable risk control. I want to trade, I'm not trading. I lost the trade, I'm either going to go in again at half risk with everything that I need to go into, or I'm just not going to trade. Right? There's always tomorrow, there's always next week. I don't need to continue trading. My focus isn't there. I've let my emotions kind of flood enough. I don't need to necessarily do anything. I'm closing my phone, I'm closing my computer, I'm going to distract myself, right? Call a friend, go hang out, whatever the case is, go drink a beer, go work out, whatever you need to do. Get away from those markets, right? Stepping away from the markets is never going to hurt you. It's never going to hurt you, right? You can always rely on that. If you can have the impulse control to sit there and close out whatever you need, coming off a win, coming off a loss, whatever it is, just close it out. It's never going to hurt you. It's always going to be good, right? And that's controlling risk. Right? Shutting it all off and backing away is you can't lose anything. Right? And sometimes not losing anything is gaining something. So you have to have impeccable risk control. But then also below that, he also talks about permission to be less than perfect. If you think you're going to be perfect, and this was my biggest thing. My dad's on this call right now and he's listening to me, and he can even speak for me when one of my biggest downfalls, and I still battle this, is I'm a perfectionist. I have really bad OCD. I like things to be perfect. I like my desk to be perfect. I like my room to be perfect. When I eat my meals, I like my plate to be perfect. I like it to look good. I need perfect things. I need things to be perfect. I need things to be aligned, color coordinated. I'm a perfectionist, and it has been only a downfall in my trading. And that's probably one of the biggest things I fight, is being perfect and giving myself permission to be less than perfect, because I know that you can't be perfect in this. And it's been my biggest clash throughout my trading career, is I try to be perfect. It hurts me when I'm going with regard. It doesn't hurt me as much anymore, but it did hurt me. Trying to get the perfect entry. But not only getting the perfect entry, but getting the perfect exit. And knowing that I'm probably never going to get both. And if I'm lucky, I'll get one of the two. And even then, that's not going to happen every time, right? That's my biggest thing, is if you can give yourself permission to be less than perfect, you'll be fine. That's something that I struggle with still to this day. I like my charts to be perfect. I like, everything has to be perfect, and that hurts me. I'm not going to sit here and say it doesn't. It hurts me. It makes my trading a lot harder than it has to be. I have to battle myself more in certain areas that I usually would like to, right? Maybe you're someone who that's easy, right? That part of trading is easy for you, right? Everyone's different. 7, a vision to see yourself living it, right? What does that trader look like, right? What does Sebastian look like when he's a successful trader? What does Jess look like when she's a successful trader? What does Lewis, Joe, Patrick, George, like all you guys? What does your day-to-day look like from the moment you wake up to the moment your eyes go to the back of your head? What does that look like? What does that successful trader do? What does he eat? How does he think? What is he, how is he physically and mentally built, right? Does that person get rushed at traffic? Does he get mad and start flicking people off and honking horns when he gets cut off at traffic? If he's running a little late to something, does he start to get rushed? Is he impatient? Does he have a messy room? Do the people around that person, do they like them? Right? Are you an asshole? Are you someone that somebody goes to when they need something, when they need advice? What does that person look like? Who do you look like? You have to have a clear vision, right? The things you eat, the things you drink, all the things you do, right? What does that person look like? How does that correlate? You have to find that, write it on paper, right? See it, envision it, and know what it's going to take to get there. And then last thing, obviously, is just focus on you solely, right? You have to focus on yourself solely. The second you start focusing on Michael, or you focus on me, or Henry, or anybody else, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, unfortunately, this is something that it takes so much focus. And a lot of times you're just focusing on yourself. You're going to have to find, I don't care where you are in your life, whether you're married, single, have kids, whatever the case is. And like, Dad, I'm even speaking to you right now. But there's going to be some form of point where you cross a line where you have to be so selfish. It doesn't have to last forever. I've said it before, you have to be selfish before you can be selfless. But you have to be so selfish, you have to be so unbalanced, you have to be so committed, you have to go crazy, you have to be obsessed. You have to get to the mindset where people are looking at you and the people around you are like, what the fuck is he on? The hell is that guy's problem? This guy I can't get him away from his computer screen. Right? You have to be, I talked about this last call, you have to be unbalanced to a certain extent. And it's hard, it sucks. You have to make sure that the people around you somewhat are aware, so they just don't know that you went batshit crazy. But that's the only way I figured this stuff out, was to get a little unbalanced. And I can tell you right now, when you are trading and you are in these markets with live money, you're gonna get sucked in to an extent. There is a point, even after you know how to do it. I find myself too. Like, even this week when I was trading, I only had one trade this week, but that day on Wednesday, even though I had a winning trade, even the people at work are like asking me like, hey, are you okay? Or like, what's going on? You look down, you look tired, whatever the case is. I'm so wired in. Like, even though I did win a trade, whatever the case is, I spent so much focus on doing that and trying to maybe juggle other things too, which is my problem right now. My biggest problem right now is trying to figure out and balance my work life with my trading life. It is so hard. It is so hard for me because I can't. It's so hard for me because the second I actually start to put more percentage of focus of trading than I do, work at my job, it's so hard to get me out of that. Like I am dialed in. I'm not looking at anything else. I'm not thinking about anything else. Like I am not even I'm at work, but I'm not at work. It is just me and like trading. Like that is it, and it's hard. It can come back and bite me in the ass sometimes, right? It now allows me to be a little bit more susceptible to errors at my job, and that's not something I want. So that's something that I'm fighting. But it's very hard to do. You have to find that disconnect, right? You have to go in, get your piece of meat, get what you need to get out of that. Don't overstay your welcome, and get out and forget it. Shut off, disconnect, go into the next day, go into the next week. Because you even if you do win, I can't stress this enough. You get sucked into it. It is a trader's high is the most wild feeling in the world. I guarantee you all of you guys have had some little form of it. A trading high is the most harmful thing you can have. It is the best feeling in the world, and that's what's the worst thing about it. It feels so good. And you have to be honest about it. Like, getting in that trader's high is so harmful to you. And you kind of just have to let it be, let it go. I know I just kind of went on a little rant there, but sometimes the stuff that is most needed to talk about is not necessarily the things on the charts. Henry, you can. I know if there's anything you wanted to show, you can.
No, I mean, I think this stuff is what's most important.
Yeah, and
We can go over charts all day long, but you can know everything about what you see in the charts and not find success with that, because it comes a lot down to your understanding of yourself and how you're going to act in certain situations, and can you control yourself.
And I'm gonna brag about you for a second here, because
I still have a lot to learn in terms of that too. I'm still fresh to this, and
yeah,
I mean, it looks a lot when I talk about it, maybe that I have an understanding of the charts, but I'm still getting to know myself through this process too. And I'm new, and I make mistakes, and I make emotional mistakes, and I go through periods of drawdown, and I take losses, and sometimes I put on a little bit more risk than I should and take a loss with that. And those are things that happen, and you have to. It comes back down to that passion, like what was the first thing on Michael's tweet, right? You make these mistakes, and that's where the passion comes in. Is that mistake going to tear you down, and are you going to quit as a result, or are you going to learn from it and you're going to stick with it no matter what, and then keep going? And you do have to learn from it. And if you keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again, then you haven't learned. That's repetition. Learning is a change in the actions that you're taking as a result of something.
Yeah, I mean, it's thank you, Kate. Yeah, so I agree. Like it is super. How do I want to put this? Like, it's so weird because I'm young, Henry, you're young, and I think my biggest thing for me at least is like all of the vendettas I've had right? No matter who you are, where you are, what you have going on for you, there's a vendetta that you have, right? There's something that you're trying to prove to someone, something, right? I still battle that, right? And I've thought about it, and I've realized it's so hard to get to a state of mind where you go from I have something to prove to I have nothing to prove. And it stinks because we kind of always have something to prove. And it's not even you might not be trying to prove it to your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your husband or your kids or your family or your friends or any of that. But even if you have something to try to prove to yourself, it kind of hurts. It's not necessarily even good for you, right? Because if you have this mindset of prove, I've got to prove myself that I can do this. I've got to prove it. Like it doesn't do anything for you, but kind of set false expectations. And I think that we all have something to prove. Everyone on this call has something to prove. But why? Like even me, I'm talking to myself when I say this. Like why? Why? Who cares? It goes back to this whole dramatic thing that I said last time. Like we're all gonna die. So, okay, you proved to whoever at what extent that you're good at trading. You can manage risk, you make good money, you got your time back, you've got freedom. But like, and this is something that I keep in the back of my head too, like, do you have friends? Does your family like you? Right? I think that it goes to the whole saying of like, you can be sitting at the dinner table, but if you're sitting by yourself, it kind of sucks. Like, and I think it just comes down to like, one, a super hyper focus of yourself, but just being a good person. Like, I truly believe that is like the root of it all. If you're a good person to yourself and others, and you have obviously a passion and a drive, like you'll figure this stuff out. But this stuff is, once you get over the hump of understanding it, and you can see the charts for what they are, and you go away from having to work on the charts to now working on yourself, because you got to work on the charts before you can actually even start to work on yourself, which stinks. But it's got to be charts, and then once you can understand that, and you have the epiphanies and the paradigm shifts that you need to have, and you can actually see the charts for what they are, then you can start to work on yourself. But until then, it's charts. Then once you can work on yourself, then it's like, damn, like, okay, you get to a point where you get all your money back, you get all your time back, right? But at what cost? Right? Are you healthy? Do you have a good support group? Right? Or are you just this person that has just given everything they had to the game and got just exactly what they wanted in return? But what you want out of the game right now is not what you're going to want in the next couple of years, right? Alex Ramoni said it best. When I was 21, I wanted to be a millionaire, and when I was a millionaire, I wanted to be 21. Right? And I think someone said it best that I found this week. They said, imagine you're sitting on your deathbed with your last breaths. You've got no more life to live. Everything is behind you. Right? The only thing that you have is the next couple breaths. Right? Your life has been lived and it's done. There's no going back. There's nothing. Everything up until that point, what you had is what you had, and there's nothing left, and you're on your deathbed with your last couple breaths, right? And you close your eyes, and you close your eyes, and you basically, obviously, you die. And next thing you know, the whole room fills with light, right? And someone comes in and says, you know what? we're going to give you one more chance. And you open your eyes and you're right here, today, this day, right now, and you have one more chance to live it all the way through. Right? How does your perspective change? Right? And you've got one more chance to live everything else starting today going forward. You can change what you didn't do. You can undo what you shouldn't have done. You can go and work harder than you've ever did before, right? Because even if you did work hard during that first go around, you're probably going to work a little bit more hard the second go around, right? So I think it's understanding that you really only get one shot at this stuff. So on the days where you're tired, you're stressed, you're sore, mentally, physically, shit's just not going right, you kind of got to remember that it's your only shot at this stuff. You only get one shot. And you got to you don't have no choice but to make the most of it. Right? And when you sit there at the end of your time, I truly believe my version of hell is what I could have been. Right? When I die and I go to heaven, or wherever you believe you go after you die, I truly believe you will get put up and you will see a mere reflection of what you could have been. Right? And when that time comes, are you a complete stranger to that person, or are you a spitting image and reflection of who that person is? Right? My worst fear is getting to that point and seeing the person I could have been and being complete strangers to that person. That's my biggest fear. That's why when I wake up and I'm tired and I'm sore and life is going crazy and I'm busy at work and I'm trying to balance this and trying to balance that, I know that that's what it's supposed to feel like. You're not supposed to be comfortable. You're not supposed to sit here and be comfy and be stress-free. I remember I talked about this in the space. It's not all about being happy. You cannot have that mindset. Because guess what? When you have the mindset of, you know what, all I need to be is happy, or I got to focus on being happy, you're not going to be happy all the time. And you're going to get stressed when you're not happy because you're going to expect yourself to be happy. You're not going to be happy all the time. You're going to be pissed. You're going to be sad. You're going to go through all these emotions all these different days throughout your life. And if you have the idea of, you know what, I'm always going to be happy. Well, no, you're not. So you just have to keep your head down, keep going, and not every day is going to be the best day in the world, but you got to go through it. I'm jawboning today. For the most part, though, does anyone have any questions or anything about charts? Henry, if you have anything you want to go over, you can. The past two weekly profiles have been very weird. It's been more of one directional from Monday opens. Usually when that happens, when you're looking at weekly profiles and stuff like that, and you've got kind of back-to-back weeks where, I know not last week, but the week before, it was kind of Monday opened and we just went higher throughout the entire week. There was no sound weekly profile. And even this week, Monday opened and we kind of just went down, right? Don't expect that too much. Usually only, it happens 1 to 3 weeks where you get these, at least in a row, where you get these odd weekly profiles. Going into this week, I think that there'll be a lot more sound weekly profiles, to start to look out for that. I don't think it'll be an instance where Monday opens and you just go one direction almost the whole week and then find that lower high on Thursday or Friday and then just retrace back into the range. I think you'll get actually more sound profile delivery this week. Also, this week could have been a week where you could have kind of expected, I'll go to trading view for a second here. this week could have also been a week where you kind of could have expected a little bit smaller price delivery, right? You're coming off of a large weekly candle, right? This is something that Michael taught or teaches, and it's something that really helps, is not expecting every single week to be big weeks, right? Understanding that we had a big week the week prior, and that this week could very much so be an inside week, right? That helps you a lot, because now you're not expecting price to expand outside, above, or below the range. You're only playing within it, and that can cut a lot of questions down in your head of where price can go, how far can price go. So understanding this week, this past week, that price was potentially maybe going to only retrace back into this range was good. Now, do we know how far it was going to be or whatever the case is? No. But just knowing, okay, well, Carson, what's considered a big week? Well, we traded from 43.49, so 43.50 to 44.93. So you're looking at, off the top of my head, if I were to do that, you're looking at a 150 handle week range, right? 150 handle week range. And if you look to see, if I were to measure this out, right? That's the size of it, right? Every single time we had some candle or weekly range that had that, right? We kind of had some form of inside week, right? And if it wasn't even an inside week, it was a small week. It doesn't happen all the time, but something to think about, right? If you get to that 150 handles around there, you're going to be a lot safer expecting a small range week, potentially an inside range week, than just expecting the same thing to happen again, right? Because what stinks is, unfortunately, you get into a position where, let's say you're a buyer on this weekly candle, right? You're a buyer somewhere in here, and you have a great week. You buy this all the way up. Unfortunately, your mental capital is not going to sit there and you're not going to want to be told that, oh, we have an inside small week that retraces. No, you're going to want a whole nother week like that. And your body and your mind's going to expect that. And that's where you can get hurt, because next thing you know, price opens and it gives some little tiny form of retrace. Next thing you know, it's Monday or Tuesday and you're already buying again, right down in here, right? And that's where you can get hurt. So, just another something for you. But I don't really have too much more. I know I kind of ranted for a while there, but
Well, we can just do questions.
yeah, if anyone has any questions.
Or if anyone wants to just come on and talk about something.
Yeah, if you guys have anything that y'all want to talk about in your trading this week, anything that you're battling, anything that you're overcoming, you know, it's good to get stuff off your chest too. I mean, it helps me. I don't even do that. You know, when I go on those events, sometimes I'm not even doing it for you guys. I'm doing it for me, right? I'm doing it to just speak my mind. Journaling is so key too. Like, I very much so recommend you take a moment and just try to write as much as you can. I don't care what you write about. It can be trading, not trading, it can be anything. But just put pen to paper and just write whatever's in your mind. Write for 10 pages. Just write. Right? I think people get caught up with how they journal or what their journal should look like. And I think the best way I can put true journaling, whether you want to add what you want in your trading, whatever the case is, you need to have some form of stream of consciousness. Right? You need to have some form of stream of consciousness that you're following, that you're documenting. Just this consecutive stream of consciousness to where you can go back days, weeks, months, years, and follow your stream of consciousness. See when it goes down, see when it goes up, see when it's very sharp, and see when it's very dull. And when you can do that, and you do it long enough, you can start to now prevent certain things. I'm reaching this area in my life right now. So-and-so's treating me like this. This is kind of occurring. This X, Y, and Z is occurring. This is usually when I start to get dull and I get down. It's happened 3 times in the past 6 months. Actually, you know what? Because I've followed the stream of consciousness and I'm aware of it, I'm not going to let it get to me this time. Where I've been dull and down before is where I'm going to stay sharp and see where it gets me. But you can't follow or track any of that unless you have some form of written documented stream of consciousness. Right? Goes back to accountability and responsibility. You're responsible for your thoughts. If I were to ask you right now, what were you thinking last Tuesday? Where were you at mentally? Can anyone tell me what they were thinking about last Tuesday? Nobody can. You don't remember that. I'd be very weirded out and very impressed if you could tell me what thoughts were going on in your head last Tuesday. What if they were important? What if they actually were, what if there was something that might have popped up in your head that you were only going to remember for that small period of time, that if you didn't write it down, it was just going to be a waste? Think of all of the good thoughts that you might have had through I don't know how long that just they're there for a reason. A thought pops up in your head for a reason. And if you just let it be that, it's just a thought, then that's all it'll ever be. But if you can start to document it and track it, you can then start to use it. Why did you have that thought? What could that thought start to piece into? That thought might start to creep into an idea. That idea might start to creep into a plan. That plan might start leading to goals, and those goals will start to feed into actions. Next thing you know, you've got that one little thought. Now you're doing stuff in real life, day to day, that you're trying to attack. And it all started with what? A thought. Every little thing that you guys do, every little thing that you guys seek, it all starts with a thought. Right? Where do those come from? I don't know. But I know that they don't randomly just pop up. Sometimes they do. And the random ones, you can let them go in one ear and out the other. But for the most part, you have thoughts for a reason. They don't just happen. Right? There's a reason why you have these thoughts, but if you don't track them, that's all there will ever be. You never know when that next thought might come through, and that thought might lead to the best thing of your life. That one thought might get you exactly what you need, but if you just let it be a thought and you forget it and you let it go by, then it's nothing. If you can stick it to pen to paper, follow it, don't let it go away, don't forget it, who knows what it could grow to be. Yes, sir, Mr. Ismail, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I kind of struggle with this a lot, just because I'm still like early in the days of trading and not profitable yet, between like evals and just, kind of like that break even status. I've been journaling for the last, I want to say 3 months consistently, like with weekly profiles, daily sessions, but just because in that state of the break even state, I find it so hard to put like the emotions and the thoughts side of it on pen and paper. And just when I look at my journal now, it's literally all technicals.
Okay. Yeah, and I get where you're coming from too. I would say on my side of things, I have 2 journals. I have a journal where I'll put weekly levels, profiles, stuff like that. But I'll I have another one that just tracks the stream of consciousness. Let me run downstairs and go get my journal. I'll read you a page out of it. And you can kind of, that's the best thing I can do is I can give you an example of how I completely separate what's technical from what's not technical, right? What's psychological. And there's a difference of tracking the markets, where they're going, where they're trading, and how that reflects my trading, but then also just my straight stream of consciousness. Hold on, give me 1 second. I'll run downstairs and go grab it. Okay, can you hear me? So, 2 journals, right? This one right here is technicals, right? I'm tracking levels, I'm tracking weekly profiles, all that stuff. This one is kind of just like a stream of consciousness. And let me just find one. Let me find. I just want to find one that doesn't get too into stuff. Okay. Okay. This is just one. This was December 13th, 2021. All right. So this was 2 years ago. December 13th. And I still speak about markets in this stuff too, just because it directly correlates with stuff. But the market finally delivered to the 39.1250 level that I had been talking about. Still focused on getting everything ready for the new year. I really do feel as if it could be my year. I'm a firm believer that the universe attracts what we think, but it doesn't just give it to us how we would like. It gives us certain frequencies to follow in order to mold us into the person we need to be to obtain the things we think about. I still find my mind wandering places it probably shouldn't. Sometimes I still think about my ex. Sometimes I still think about the financial situations that I've had to endure. And I think about mom and dad and Parker and their situation because I want it to change. And it will, and I will, but it just can't happen overnight. I need to remain doing the things I'm doing with myself as my main mental priority. The second I start to think about more than that, it is too much to bear. I need to sit here and always make sure that myself remains my mental priority, always. Quick, easy, 1 page, done, right? Just something like that, just an exhale, right? I'll read, I'll read another one. Okay, so this is December 21, 2022. So almost a year later. And I don't journal every single day too. I'll go areas where I'm not necessarily journaling. So this is my next one. It's been about a week since I've journaled. The second half of the week, I was watching Daniel's dogs. I wish he would have paid me more, but it's okay. I believe the universe will always pay bigger. It always does. I was also sick with the flu over the weekend, so my main focus was regaining my health, as that is our biggest weapon that we always have and we always tend to take for granted. I had a good day in the market yesterday, 6+%. I had um, I had exceeded what I had actually wanted to in the market, which is not necessarily okay, but as long as I'm aware of it, I'm fine. I need to make sure that I don't overstretch or overstay any boundaries that I might need or want in the market. It felt good to have a clear day in the markets with all of the choppy price action we've had since December started. I'm not putting too much energy. So there was like this girl that I liked. Not talking about like my ex, but there was a girl I liked. And I said, I'm not putting too much energy into, I'm not going to say her name, but I'm not going to put too much energy into this girl. If the universe allows it, it will signal it. I have plenty to focus on, and as much as I would like to at least get to know her more, it is not my priority. You know what the priority is. It has not changed and will not anytime soon. I said, keep on continuing being the lion that you know you are. I'm a Leo, so I've got lions all over my desks, but it's just, you have to have some little tiny thing where each and every day you can sit there and whatever you might be thinking about, some form of stream of consciousness, you just put it on there. You just have to find some form of stream of consciousness, talk about the things that you just think about, right? No one has to see this. It's for your eyes only. But you have to figure out, sometimes I'm talking about markets in there. Sometimes I'm just thinking about, where was my head that day? Right? Your head goes from all these different places day by day. You wake up, it's a new day. Who knows what you're going to think about? Maybe you're thinking about that girl. Maybe you're thinking about trading. Maybe you're thinking about the gym. Maybe you're just not thinking that day. There's days in here where I'm just NA, non-applicable. Our mind's just not there, right? I still put that in there, right? I didn't have the energy, right? I think test days are really good too. Test days are the best. Well, what's a test day? A test day is where nothing goes right. Nothing goes as planned. You just get caught up in stuff. Things don't go the way that you want them to. You just have test days are the best days, because if you can do what you said you were going to do on the test day, all right, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to go to the gym, then I'm going to go to work, then I'm going to journal, then I'm going to do all this stuff, XYZ, and then it's pouring rain throughout the entire day. You get in a fight, you get, whatever the case is, it's a lot harder to do X, Y, and Z based on whatever that's going on in that day. But if you still find a way to do it, okay, you know what? I said I was going to go to the gym. It's pouring rain and it's freezing cold outside. Still go to the gym. Okay, after I go to the gym, I'm going to eat a healthy meal, and then I'm going to back test for 2 hours. Well, you don't really have that much of an appetite, but you still eat anyway. And a new episode of a show that you really, really like just dropped. Oh, I didn't even realize that was dropping today. That sounds really good. I really want to watch that. But you know what? I told myself I was going to back test. I'll back test. And then after I back test, I'm going to journal for an hour, and then I'm going to read a book. You get a phone call from your friends. Hey, we're all going golfing. You want to go golfing? Rain cleared up. We're gonna go golf, have a couple beers. Damn, that sounds really fun. But I told myself I was gonna journal and read, right? It's days like that, right? It's a lot easier to do that when, you know what? I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna go to the gym, I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna eat a healthy meal, I'm gonna back test, and then I'm gonna journal, and then I'm gonna read. And all of my friends are gone, no one's here, I got no distractions, right? Weather's fine. Those are easy days, right? You're going to have easy days and hard days, but if you continuously do the same thing that you're telling yourself you're going to do, it doesn't matter how hard the day is, you have to do it, right? It goes back to discipline. How disciplined are you? But that's about it for me, I think, for the most part. I really wanted to find a tweet that was so good. I'll try to find it. It's gonna take me a minute to find, but I can probably find it. Unless I liked it. I don't think I liked it. Alright, let me look, hold on. If you guys don't follow Alex, he's not a trader, but he's really good. He's got the stuff that he tweets are really, really good. But he tweets a lot, that's what stings. This is also a really good one. Heroes and villains always have the same backstory, pain. The difference is what they choose to do about it. The villain says, the world hurt me, I'll hurt it back. The hero says, the world hurt me, I'm not going to let it hurt anyone else. Right? Heroes use pain, villains are used by it. Going back to letting anger, anger is not a bad thing to have, right? Anger is something that is probably one of the most beneficial things you can use, right? It's just some people use anger for the wrong things, right? They don't know how to transcribe that into good energy. But if you can use anger, right, the amount of the best work I've gotten done, the most progress I've gotten towards a specific goal is when I was angry about something, and I let that anger fuel me. Whenever you find areas where you're angry about something, use it. Put that in the tank and let it burn. Like let that be a very good, useful tool for you. Let me find it. I'll find it. It was so good. I'll find it. Also, this is really good too. I remember this one. A trick I use when I'm feeling shitty. Message a friend something positive. Gets my head out of my ass thinking about only myself and reminds me other people on this planet still exist. Bonus, it usually turns out into a nice friendly combo that makes my day. Super easy. Costs $0 to do something like that. Oh, come on. This guy tweets so much. This one's really good too, though. The best games in life can't be won, only played. You don't win at marriage. The point of marriage is to keep the marriage going. You don't win at health. The point is to stay healthy. You don't win at business. The point is to stay in business, keep the game going. Same thing with trading. You don't win trading, you just keep trading. Oh, come on, I should have pinned this. I'm too deep in it now to give up. I gotta find it. I want to find this so bad, guys. I'm sorry. I might have already scrolled past it. I don't know. I'll have to find it at a later time. Yeah, I can't find it, guys. I'm sorry. It's a lot. It's a while back. Oh well, I'll find it and I'll share it on the next call. But other than that, I don't really have too much. That's about it for me. Henry, you got anything before we end it out?
Yeah, it's good to me. Just take it slow and stay safe and see how the week kind of develops. Any last questions from anybody?
Anything else before we end up? Trade safe.
Questions, comments?
Do what you need to do. Be the person you need to be. Best advice I can give you is just whatever you got to do, whatever you're going through, do it one more day, right? Do all the right things one more day. Don't try to do it for a week. Don't try to do it for a month. Just do it for one more day, or vice versa. If there's things you know you shouldn't be doing, just don't do it for one more day. Don't focus on next week or next month. Just focus on doing what you need to do or doing what you don't need to do one more day. Aside from that, that's about it for me, guys. Enjoy your week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Do what you need to prepare. I'll send this recording once it's done. Rendering. Another one down. I'll talk to you guys throughout the week. And stay safe. Good luck and Godspeed.
Take care,